It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Hello, and welcome to Accelerate. I'm excited to talk with my guest today. Joining me is Shep Hyken, customer service and customer experience expert, Hall of Fame speaker, New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestselling author. Shep, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. Mom's especially proud of that last one, the bestseller.
Well, not just once, but multiple times. I mean, that's very impressive.
Been very lucky.
So take a minute, introduce yourself, tell us how you got into the customer service, customer experience business.
Well, to really do that, we've got to go way, way back.
Let's go way, way back. That's fine.
Yeah, I was a kid, started my first business, and my parents gave me suggestions on how to make sure that my customers were happy. And everything from writing a thank you note when, I was a birthday party magician. So writing a thank you note after the job or the show,
right.
Making sure I showed up early, making sure I called to get feedback. And I had no idea that was called customer service back then. And then, we skipped to when I started my business way back, 1983, pretty much right out of college. And all of the things that my parents taught me about that little birthday party magic show business were the things that I believed in and started talking about. Read a book called Moments of Truth, and actually read an article prior to that by the same gentleman that authored the book, Jan Carlson.
Yep.
And read that article, and I said, this is exactly what I want to talk about. And then when the book came out, there weren't a lot of customer service books back then to study and research. And throughout my high school and college career, I had a regular job. I knew what good customer service was. I worked at this sounds, like a lower end job in a sense, a guy collecting money on the drive at a gasoline station. It's probably not the highest profile job that you want. It's definitely, you would think, well, where's the customer service there? We were a self-service station, and we were just an old station that you didn't go up to the kiosk and pay the cashier. We actually had to go collect the money on the drive and reset the pump manually. And one day it was about, it was so cold. It was well below freezing, and an elderly woman came up, and she jumped out of her car to pump her gas. And I said, ma'am, stay in the car. I'll take care of it. And I went inside, and my manager kind of yelled at me. He said, why did you do that? We're a self-service station. I go, yeah, but she was older and looked frail, and I just thought it was the right thing to do. And he said, well, now she's going to expect that every time. I go, well, at least she'll come here instead of across the street. And, so I didn't know that was called customer service. I just thought it was doing the right thing. And I quickly learned, doing the right thing. But I actually, with that company, I was I worked at the station on the weekends. I worked in the accounting department during the week. And when I graduated, I became the manager of the retail operation, ultimately different regions and then overall. And then they sold the company less than a year out of college, and that's why I do what I do today.
Interesting.
That's the background.
Okay, so let's do a definition of terms, because there's more terminology coming into customer service business, or directly and a little bit on the fringe.
Right.
We've got customer service, we've got customer experience, now increasingly customer success. So maybe take people through the listening to this, what the difference is between the three. Let's define each one and make sure people really sort of understand.
Sure. And let's start with customer service, because I think that was the first of the three terms,
right.
Not just in your description, but that was the first. There was no customer experience. There was not customer success back when people started thinking about customer service, which is really the people-to-people interaction, the way a salesperson manages a relationship, the way a customer support person takes care of a complaint or handles a question. It was all of the interactions that customers had with the company, typically on a people-to-people level.
And I think the important thing to interject is that it includes pre-sales as well as post-sales. And this is really, I want to get back to it later, but this is really hard for a lot of business owners and CEOs to really understand, is that what happens before the sale is a service as well.
It's selling with service. It's relationship building. It's creating confidence. And then once the person decides to write you a check or use their credit card or say, where do I sign? that's when they have confidence to do that, and that's when affirmation takes over. And did they make the right decision? It's really what happens afterward is that people think, well, that's the service side, but the reality is everything leading up to it is building the relationship through creating confidence. Confidence is created through the interactions that people have with others, which is ultimately customer service. So.
Right. Okay, that's customer service. So next one is customer experience.
So when customer experience started being bantered around, I don't know how many years ago, not that many years ago, most people thought that experience and service were the same. And by the way, I was probably one of those people early on until I started to understand that customer service was most of experience, but there were other things that were happening. And I'll use Apple as the perfect example because Steve Jobs said he wanted the box to be part of the experience. The way a customer opened the box and saw their product wrapped and neatly placed in really interesting looking boxes. That was part of the experience. And I thought, okay, I'm starting to get it. Packaging and design is part of the experience. Part of the experience might be receiving an email after you place your order at Amazon or any other retailer online where it just confirms that your order has been placed. Then it's confirmed that the order is sent, and here's your shipping number if you want to track it. Little things like that are all adding to the experience. So while a customer service experience is a very big part of the overall experience, experience includes any interaction, people to people, people to product, people to any aspect of the business that customer experiences is part of the experience.
Okay, so customer success.
Customer success. Now, there are several definitions out there, but I'm going to go with what I think is the most standard and basic, and that is customer success is ensuring the success that your customer has with your product. A best way to describe it is this is a generic example. I buy a software program, and it's a pretty robust, important software program to my business. And rather than just me buying it and installing it and trying to figure out how to do it, the company says as part of this process, we have a coach that will be assigned to you, and that person will take you and give you your first lesson or many lessons if necessary to ensure you can fill in the blank, success. And so really that's what customer success is creating a system that allows your customer to maximize the success they're going to have with your product.
Right, and success could be defined as make sure they get the ROI from it that they anticipated or that you proposed to them, or they get the value in some dimension that they expected they would when they purchased it.
Right, and great company that does this, Quicken, for example, QuickBooks. If you want to set up your system on QuickBooks, they have people that are waiting, ready to help you out. Of course, you can go to third-party groups that you can pay for that, but ultimately, they're giving you that opportunity to be successful with their product.
Yeah, so the one term we haven't mentioned here in this list is customer support.
Yes. So support, and that ties directly into customer service, and support is handling questions and complaints, which to me is a part of customer service, but not all of it. And unfortunately, too many companies feel that customer service is a department and not a philosophy. Yeah, it's really a philosophy in my mind. Everybody's involved. So the customer service department or customer support department is typically, if it's online support, if it's social media support, people interacting over the social media channels, or the traditional pick up the phone, give me a call. And I think even email falls into the traditional side.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I love what you say. In one of your articles I was reading, you said there are no traffic jams along the extra mile, meaning if you go the extra mile to help the customer, you're not going to have a lot of company out there.
And I think that's in everything that you do. And it's the support, it's the experience, it's the general service. It's what are you doing to differentiate yourself, to put yourself out there a little bit further than others. And I wrote that article just last week, but I've been talking about that concept for a long, long time. And if you think about what is it that you enjoy with the businesses that you do business with that makes you stay loyal to them? And sometimes that extra mile is that extra phone call, the extra time somebody spends with you to help you understand that customer success factor, where as part of the onboarding process to a software program, you can pick up the phone and get the support you need, and you're assigned your coach, and all of these ideas, by the way, to utilize them to their maximum ability, and what they're meant for is anybody could be nice, anybody can go the extra mile, anybody can do an extra step, stand out. But is that creating an emotional hook of some sort with the customer? When I say emotional, I'm not talking about, are you going to make the customer cry or smile or be happy? No.
You might actually.
You might, you might if it's really bad, but I hope it doesn't happen if it's really a good situation. But here's the thing. People say, what's the difference between, customer satisfaction and customer loyalty? So let's talk about two definitions here. When everybody says, hey, we're going after, we want our customer sat scores to be high. I don't care about customer sat scores. Satisfaction is a rating, okay? It's a 1 to 5 or a 1 to 10. I love it when they give me those high ratings in my satisfaction scores, but I want to know, do those ratings get the customer to come back? So satisfaction is a rating. Loyalty is an emotion. And if I do everything right and my scores are high and the relationship that my people have built with the customer, and maybe it's not even my people, maybe I've created a system online, a website, where you have enough confidence that you know that when you place that order, you're going to get that response. It's been placed. Now it's been shipped, following up to make sure I received it. All of it can be automated, but you are creating a system that gives me confidence to want to do business with you again. And customer loyalty is about that confidence that you have in the company. So it's emotional versus just a rating.
Well, and I think the customers, though, they understand and appreciate what the extra mile is. And I think they get it so infrequently that there's an appreciation there. But I mean, I write about this in my books, is that, in a time where products and services are so rapidly commoditized, is being able to create a point of differentiation is really essential. So that everybody sort of looks alike out there to the buyers. The great thing about the extra mile that you talk about, or things I talk about in my books, is that this is under your control as an individual. I mean, you don't have to have a mandate. You don't need to be a dictate. It's right. You can do this.
Right. And what can you do that is the extra mile that's going to set you apart? And you need to give employees, if we're talking to if the people listening to this show have employees, you need to give the employees the ability, empower them to do little extra things, and give them examples of what those extras are. I love, and I know the company is almost a cliche in customer service, but Zappos is recognized as one of the top customer service companies in the world. And Tony Hsieh says, who's their CEO, you do what it takes to make the customer happy. You stay on the phone long enough to make sure that when that customer gets off the phone, they're completely happy. American Express, who's a great company, not quite as recognized for their customer services. I mean, they are a rock star in customer service.
But, I think so. I've had great interactions with them.
Yeah, but compared to Zappos, where Tony Hsieh, I think part of it is it's a big institution versus a smaller, $1 billion business versus many billions,
multiple
of dollars.
billion, right?
But still, the important thing there is that a company like American Express, their metrics and they use NPS, the Net Promoter Score, which is a simple question, which is on a scale of 1 to 10, what's the likelihood that you would recommend us? And they, as part of their metric, the call centers, when you call and talk to them, they will stay on the phone long enough to get a high score. It's their goal it's the goal of the company, the culture of the company, to deliver that level of service. So they've empowered their employees at the call center level to do what it takes. Stay on the phone, ask extra questions, make sure that customer has gotten what they asked for. Even if, it seems ridiculous sometimes, but it could take longer than the average call. It doesn't matter. And ironically, the management and the leadership, some of their compensation is based on that front line's ability to create a good score, because that's the kind of company they want to be.
Right.
And I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, where I was going to say, where other companies are engaging their managers or call centers on their call handling time. Hey, that was too long, right?
Yeah, you spent too much time. What's with that greeting? Cut that down by 3 words. You get an extra 2 seconds. At the end of a day, that might be an extra, or at the end of a week, that's an extra 2-3 calls you could have made by saving a few seconds on every call. And here's the thing, and I don't know if you've ever, I use, I won't tell you the name of the wireless company that I use for my phone, but their initials are AT&T.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's the thing about AT&T, and I love it. I'm pretty comfortable with them, and I like the service most of the time. I mean, I recognize, this is your coverage is going to go out. Sometimes it's not AT&T's fault, but when I've called them and they say, hey, I'm looking at your calling plan, and I'm noticing you don't come anywhere near to the amount that you're paying for. Would you like to save a little money? That's not what I called about. But guess what? They're adding something. I mean, I think that that's a great value add. And you know what? I really appreciate that they do that. And by the way, they probably appreciate that I'm willing to tell this story. Because overall, the service that I get from AT&T has been very good. Mm-hmm. I hope I didn't jinx myself just now.
I was going to say your wireless just went out in your house, but yeah.
Right, but overall, they do a pretty good job. And then they throw something like that on there. Wow, that's pretty good. And I know I've called and I've said, hey, why all of a sudden did my data charges go up? And they look at it and they go, you must have not, activated your Wi-Fi properly. You know what? We'll take that off. We see that this is not something that's happening all the time. I mean, they get it. They know what's going on. And I appreciate that.
And that's that small thing. And I talk about this is that, I ask people to tell me how much did they win their last deal by? Was it 5% better? Were you 10% better? Were you 20% better? And the fact is you only have to be 1% better to get the customer business. And it's things like going along the extra mile that they are that difference they're the tiebreaker between winning or losing.
Right. And I'll go a step further and say sometimes you don't have to be 1% or 5% better. You can be 5% higher. But is the value you bring to the table with the experience and the service that they receive big enough to make price less relevant?
Yeah. And I was just talking about, and if they assume price was the same and the offering looked the same.
Right.
How do you make that decision?
That there's only one way, and that's exactly what you're talking about, the service and the experience they get.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Well, we're going to take a short break, come back, talk about building a culture of customer service at a company with my guest, Shep Hyken. We'll be right back. Hi, this is Andy. Connect and Sell is used by sales reps at nearly 1,000 companies, including hundreds of technology startups and several Fortune 500 companies, to overcome the challenges of getting prospects on the phone. Companies using Connect and Sell grow their revenues faster by enabling their sales reps to have more sales conversations in 90 minutes than they could otherwise achieve in an entire week. Connect and Sell can be deployed directly to your sales reps, or you can take advantage of their outbound on-demand service, which delivers qualified prospect meetings scheduled directly on your sales reps' calendars. Visit connectandsell.com to learn more about how Connect and Sell can start filling your pipeline today. Okay, welcome back. We're talking to Shep Hyken today about customer service, customer experience. So, really like something I read recently. You had written about building a culture of customer service. You're talking about being a philosophy, not a mandate, not a policy. So it's not just about hiring or leadership. I mean, it's really about commitment and consistency, right?
Right. Commitment, consistency. You're always thinking about it. Great service is not a part-time thing. It's an all-the-time thing. Again, service isn't a department. It's a philosophy that runs through the entire company, from the CEO to the most recently hired lowest level position. It is everybody's job to take care of the customer. And if it's an internal customer you're taking care of, you're probably doing something or supporting someone that is better able to take care of their outside customer if you don't actually have direct contact with that outside customer. So keep that in mind as well.
I think one of the great customer service experiences, and I don't know if you've spent much time in New York City, but is to go to a restaurant owned by Danny Meyer. Who's one of the great restaurateurs in New York.
Fellow St. Louis guy.
As a matter of fact, that's right. And So I always tell the story. So my wife and I and our families, our grown kids, we'd been at dinner New Year's Eve in San Diego, and we'd gone to this restaurant, and my stepdaughter had, take-home portions she wanted to take home. And as we get ready to leave, she asks, the server, where's my doggy bag? And they said, oh, we threw it away. And so I said, okay, well, that was like a big portion of her meal. She hadn't eaten much. What are we going to work out here? And they were completely unwilling to be helpful about this at all. I think they offered us a free glass of wine, was pretty much it. So a couple months later, my wife and I are at Gramercy Tavern, which is one of Danny Meyer's restaurants in New York City.
I've been there.
And same thing. My wife had I forget what she had. Actually, it was chicken she had, and she had only eaten maybe half of it, and had asked them to bag it up. And so as we get ready to go, they say you pick up your takeout bag your doggy bag at the front. We go and ask where it is, and they said, oh my gosh, I think we might have thrown it away. Stay here, if you don't mind, for a few minutes. And they cooked up the entire entree again and gave it to us, and the whole meal free of charge. No questions asked. And it's like the difference there was just the way they're trained, and they didn't have to involve a manager. The waiter did it on his own. It's just like night and day difference, right? And it seems like that is coming from the top.
So, and it is. And Danny Meyer is a brilliant dude. By the way, we went to school together. We went to nursery school together.
Very cool.
Nursery school. And then we were together. He switched high schools somewhere around 9th or 10th grade, maybe 8th grade. We went to a school that started in 5th grade after that. And he was a year ahead of me. I don't know how that happened. Somehow he sprinted a year ahead of me. He switched
Or you
schools.
spent an extra year you didn't realize.
Well, I know I didn't do that, but maybe we were just in nursery school and he was on the second half of his 2-year, I don't know. But we joked about that. We actually reconnected playing tennis down in Florida during spring break. But Danny's a brilliant guy, and he believes that service is the differentiator, and all of his restaurants really focus on trying to create that experience. And something else you may or may not know, and just in the last year, he made the statement that we are going to go tipless.
Yes.
No more tipping.
Fun. Yep.
And he believes service is a team sport. He said typically the people that get tipped are on the front line, but it's people behind the scenes that are helping to drive that experience. So instead, you know what? Does that mean you're going to pay less to go to a restaurant because you don't have to tip? No. He's going to incorporate the tip into the meal. So you won't pay any more. Maybe you might pay around the same, maybe even a little bit more. But here's what happens. The people in the back of the house who don't ever get seen are now making higher wages. They have more invested in the job because they want to keep this job because it pays better than any other job they have in the same, industry. And they're just, I think it's doing really well. I think the jury's still out. I haven't seen a lot of reports come through, but I know that was the goal, and we haven't heard anything to the contrary. So hope he's doing well with that.
Well, I think it is, but I think it's a trend that's occurring, and it's for the reason you said is if you give everybody a bigger stake in it, they're all more committed to making the experience that much better.
Right.
Yeah, that's okay. Very interesting. I didn't realize you had that connection when I told the story. So
I know everybody.
You know everybody. Everything. Okay. Well, now, so in just a few minutes, we have left on this segment. I just want to talk about your 6 steps to build customer service culture. Having the right people to begin with is really important. Obviously, that was your first step. Leadership has to create the culture, which we had just talked about. How do you hire people with a customer service mindset?
Sure, and I think that there are 6 steps, and I'll tell you what we'll do. Why don't I take and give you the less than 2-minute version, maybe
Perfect.
1-minute version of that. And it is assumed that you have good people to begin with, that you've done a good job hiring. So we'll come back to the hiring question, but I don't want to run out of time with the 6 steps. Number 1, leadership takes the position and defines what the service initiative will be, the vision. My suggestion is you can write it all out, and it could be a document if you want, but at the end of the day, it needs to be summarized in one simple sentence. For example, the Ritz-Carlton, 9 words long, we're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. That's the overarching vision, and underneath it, you have all your initiatives and all the standards that support it. So it's defined by leadership. Number 2, it is communicated to everybody. And you can communicate it many different ways, through voice, through video, through written, through signage. But it's communicated and it becomes part of what everybody understands the company's about. Number 3 is that you train it. You train everybody. And the front line might be trained differently than somebody in the warehouse. But everybody gets trained to what the overarching philosophy is. Number 4, leadership demonstrates it. You can't say something and then do something else. It's incongruent behavior. So it is leadership demonstrating and defining it. And by the way, I'll go a step out here and say that everybody can be a leader when it comes to great service. You want to be the person that other people say, I want to do that. I want to be like that.
Managers have to model the behavior.
Oh yeah, they model it. I mean, you can't act one way and be different. Walt Disney used to walk through the theme park and pick up paper off the ground and throw it away because he knew that everybody was watching him, and that if he walked by the piece of paper, he gave permission for everyone to walk by the trash and throw it away. And he called that stooping to excellence. Great example of being a role model.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5 is to keep it in alignment. And I think that's leadership and management's job. If they see someone out of alignment with the vision or the mission, bring them back in or her back in. If it's a department or a group or a division, same thing. And finally, number 6, you celebrate it when it works. Let everybody know it's working and it's successful, and give them some metrics so they can know because business is all numbers. We increased sales by X%. We had a great year last year. We retained 92.6% of our customers versus the year before we had 87. They love to know that their hard work is paying off and celebrate it.
And I think one of the things that you brought up in the article that you didn't mention or didn't drill down on this you're recounting here is, empower your employees to do the right thing.
Right.
Don't make them get management approval to do the right thing.
And that's part of the training. And the best way to do that is this philosophy that it's not mine, but it's not all that well known either. It's called 1 to say yes and 2 to say no. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but basically it's, if I want to say yes, this seems like a reasonable thing to do for my customer. It doesn't hurt the company. It doesn't really cost the company any money. It could save the customer. All the good things could happen. I don't need to go to my manager to get approval. Or if I've gotten approval once, I don't need to go back for the same thing to get approval a second, third, or a 100th time. However, if I need to say no and I can't come up with a way to say yes to the customer, then I have to go to the manager and say, help me here.
Mm-hmm,
what can I do to say yes? Or if I can't say no, please approve that I can say no.
Yeah. No, perfect. I love that. Love that. 1 to say yes, 2 to say no. A great rule to take into effect.
And that's part of empowerment.
Yeah, I mean, and that seems to be the thing that holds people back, at least in my experience with customer service, is they're trying to anticipate what management thinks is the right thing to do. And so, clearly they don't have an understanding of either management hasn't clearly articulated, or sometimes, as we said before, maybe they just think this is all a waste of time. But, they don't know how to act in that context.
So here's a big payoff exercise to do. Tell everybody they're empowered to do something, and then give them an index card and tell them over the next week or two to write down an example of when they did something without having to ask a manager. And then compile all of those responses, and every employee needs to do this because it could be an internal customer as well. And then you start looking for truly empowered employees that recognize they just did something without asking permission. You start to assemble a best practice book with these examples. And you start to train using real life, real company, your company examples. And what happens over a period of time, people start to understand there is a line in the sand that they don't want to cross, but they're now learning how far they can get toward that line, how close they can get to it before they know that they're crossing it. If somebody crosses it, well, that's a story, and there's a learning opportunity there. But if they're not getting close enough to the line, they need to also teach that or treat that as a learning opportunity.
Got it. Well, good. Well, I really appreciate this input. We're going to move to the last segment of our show, and in a minute, we'll give you a chance to tell people how to get hold of you. So here's the first question I have for you is standard questions I ask all my guests. It's a hypothetical scenario. And in this scenario, you, Shep, have just been hired as the new sales leader at a company whose sales have stalled out and not making the progress they want. They want to get unstuck desperately. So they're looking to you. What 2 things would you do your first week on the job that could have the biggest impact?
Well, I'd probably first want to, first of all, I wouldn't be the sales manager.
Well, that's a hypothetical. So that's,
hypothetical. I know that.
Project yourself.
The first thing I'd want to do is I'd want to get I'd want to interview every sales rep, or depending on the size of the company, a sample of the sales reps. Why are we stalling out? What's going on? What's your feeling? What do you feel the culture is here? What's the sentiment here at the company? I want to know what's happening there. Then I want to do at least an equal number, if not more, customers. So that's the second piece of it. And by the way, I don't care which comes first, but I'd like to go down the employee route first, because I believe that before we can even begin to support the outside customer, we need to be supporting internally as strong, if not stronger. And so I'd want to see what the company sentiment is from both the employee and the customer standpoint.
Love it. Okay, good answer. So now some questions. You can give me one-word answers if you want, or you can elaborate if you wish. And the first one is, when you, Shep, are out selling your services, what's your most powerful sales asset?
Yes. No, he said one word. My most powerful sales asset. Gosh, that's a great question. And I'm not sure I'm going to give you the right answer because there's so many different answers. But I think reputation has a whole lot to do with it. The confidence we create through the reputation we have. But I think the word confidence may be the one word to describe everything, because how fast do we call somebody back? They may have heard of a reputation. Well, now we need to prove it. How fast do we call somebody back? How quickly do we get them what we've promised we would get them? Are we polite and easy to deal with? So those are all, I think confidence may be the overarching word. We create confidence.
Okay, love it. Who's your sales role model?
You.
Ah, perfect. Thank you.
I know. Who is my sales role model? Well, I can tell you, back in 1983, when I got into this business, my mom said, you don't have a job. There's these two speakers that are coming to St. Louis, Missouri at the Sheraton Hotel downtown, which is now where the former St. Louis Rams used to play. They leveled the hotel and made it a dome stadium.
An empty dome now.
Now it's empty, but that's another story. And she said, there's a couple of speakers, and I saw two of the most amazing speakers that completely changed my life, and that was Zig Ziglar and Tom Hopkins.
Tom Hopkins. He's been a guest on the show.
Yeah, and so Tom gave me sales techniques, and Zig gave me that goal-setting attitude. And so I went back and I did exactly what these guys. I bought Tom's book and Zig's CD. Or it wasn't a CD. It was a cassette tape set called "See You at the Top."
Yep.
Yeah. And Tom's book, I still have it. It's a green book called "How to Master
the Art of Selling." That was my first sales book I ever read.
Exactly. And I set my goals and I started smiling and dialing. So I gave you two answers: Tom and Zig.
Excellent. 2 for the price of 1. Okay. So other than your own books, what is one book every sales rep should read?
Wow. Okay. So again, I'm a customer service and experience guy. I'm going to tell you about a book called The Experience Economy by Joe Pine and Jim Gilmore.
Yep. Great book.
Yep. And it's all about how you create the experience. And I believe that everything being equal, people will go and gravitate toward the experience. We've already talked about that.
I agree, 100%.
The role model or case study throughout the entire book isn't about everything being equal. It's about this company charging substantially more than everyone else and still getting the business, and that's Starbucks. It's like a huge case study on one of the great success stories of how somebody can charge 2 to 3 times more than someone down the street for their coffee and yet fill the place every day. And I love that book, The Experience Economy.
Yeah, it's a great book. Great book. All right, tough question here for you is, what music's on your playlist right now?
That's easy. Boy, I love Eric Clapton, Santana, Allman Brothers. And
love Allman Brothers.
By the way, I play with Eric Clapton. I play guitar.
You play along with him?
I do play along with him.
The solo on Layla?
On YouTube.
On YouTube,
I listen to him every night and play along with him on YouTube.
I love it.
But seriously, those are some of my favorites. And John Mayer. I'm a blues rock kind of a guy, so been playing guitar for a lot of years, and those are some of my favorite bands.
Excellent. Well, good. Well, I want to thank you for joining me today. My guest has been Shep Hyken. Shep, let people know how they can find out more about you.
Sure. Well, obviously, Google my name. If you Google Shep, S-H-E-P, you're gonna get first the Wikipedia thing on the dog, Shep. And then I should be right behind that. But seriously, if you go to www.hyken.com or shephyken.com, you'll find me. Or just Google my name, Shep Hyken.
Excellent. Well,
Easy.
good. Thank you very much for being here.
Hey, a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And remember, friends, make it a part of your day every day to deliberately learn something new to help you accelerate your success. And one easy way to do that is to make this podcast accelerate a part of your daily routine on your commute, in the gym, or at your morning sales huddle. Then you'll make sure you don't miss any of my conversations with top business experts like my guest today, Shep Hyken, who shared his expertise about how to accelerate the growth of your business. So thanks for joining us. Until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone. Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.